Welcome to Battalion 13, the podcast, episode 2. Darian saw strange flashes of destruction and war, demons and vampires, death and mayhem. Justin suddenly materialized in front of him, flashing his fangs and turning to dust. Kristen saw the same things, the darkness between every dream. It became a frightening yet welcome break between the horrible visions. There was more to the dream, though, something not so disturbing. He and Kristen were in what seemed like military garb. They were in the Navy, and surrounded by what felt like friends and familiar faces. It was strange, though. While some of the faces seemed familiar, he was not quite certain they had ever met. He saw Max and Chad there. Max!
Wait, Darian, Kristen, Chad, what are y'all doing in my dream?
Your dream? Last I checked, this was my dream.
Man, make an assumption.
Go ahead.
This is a shared dream. We're all in here together.
Does that mean the three of you have been dreaming about all this destruction as well? All three nodded. They looked around and saw something rather strange. A blinding blue aura surrounded a robed figure. It came closer to them, and then they heard a voice.
Go to the Naval Academy Admittance Building. There you will find your destiny. We shall meet again.
As they heard the voice, they began to awaken, and the echo stayed with them until they were fully coherent. They each opened their eyes slowly. Each one of them soon felt satisfied with a strong sense of direction. They knew now what path to take. Later that morning, Darian and Kristen talked about their shared dream and called Max and Chad to meet them for lunch at a local diner. It was confirmed. They all had the same dream. They talked and they ate. So what do you guys think of actually following through on what the voice said and signing up for the Navy?
I don't know about all you, but I'm game.
You know, yesterday I was sitting on a bench outside of school, and something weird happened. I was not sure it really happened until I had the dream last night. That gave me confirmation that I wasn't just having a daydream. It was just before you and Maddie drove up. I could have sworn that this orange cat told me to go to the academy.
Everyone looked at him oddly. That is the strangest thing I've ever heard. A cat told you to do it? Chad, what the hell have you been concocting in that science lab? Kristen was no longer paying attention to the conversation, distracted by the choice she knew lay before her. This was a decision she had to make for herself. After another moment, she made her decision.
I'm in too. We might not ever figure all this stuff out otherwise.
I'm in. Let's sign up today. Where's the nearest recruitment center?
It's on Willowdale Drive.
Let's go then. Samantha Madison sat at an oak desk in a well-lit standard issue military recruitment office. She looked up from the paper form she was working on and began to look forward, slipping into a meditative trance. Her heart chakra began to warm and a vision appeared before her eyes. A close family member would soon pay her a visit. She'd be proud of the progress he's made. And he's just maybe the person we need to stop Nightmare. The man who is a nightmare. It hasn't happened yet. Maybe it's not too late. Darian, Max, Chad, and Kristen finished their lunch and paid the check before driving toward the recruitment center. Once there, they signed up and were told about the Academy Testing Center in Annapolis. They would all need to be assessed, and so they were given the date, July 15th, 1995. Convenient that they would all be summoned on the same day. Darian had a thought that he wanted to discuss with Kristen immediately. It occurs to me that we should probably be married when we officially join the service so that they do not separate us during training or for assignment.
Okay, well, forget about the big wedding. Let's just go to the courthouse and get it done.
We should probably talk to my parents tonight.
Yeah, it might be a good idea to see what they think about all this.
Kristen felt nervous but excited about this new chapter in her life. Some women might have been bothered by the prospect of not having a fancy wedding, but that had never mattered to Kristen. Having her closest friends and family present was all that mattered. She loved Darian's family like her own, and now they would truly be her family. They went back to Darian's house after dropping off Max and Chad. Mom, Dad, we have something important to discuss with you. Darian's parents came downstairs, and they all sat at the dining room table.
What is it you wanted to discuss?
We need to get married by July 14th. His parents were visibly taken aback.
Why so soon? We thought that you would go through at least a year of college first. We were going to talk to you about planning it for early next year.
We signed up for the Navy, and we realized that it would be better if we were already married when we went in, so that we would stay together.
The Navy? Why?
Eugene was worried. His eyes narrowed with concern.
Look, Dad, we've talked about it, and if it's too much trouble, we can just go to the courthouse and get it done there.
She left unspoken her hope that he would have a better idea.
This is a bit much to take in. I could use a drink. Anyone else?
Beer.
White wine spritzer.
Wine cooler.
Eugene went into the kitchen and opened a large steel refrigerator. The kitchen was spacious and very modern, with an island in the middle. He gathered the requested beverages, a scotch on the rocks for himself, and then made his way back to the dining room table to finish the discussion. Darian opened his beer and took a sip. So what do you think we should do?
The idea that you would go to the courthouse is enough for us to know that you are serious about all of this. I couldn't be more proud of the two of you for enlisting. It's truly admirable.
Eugene looked over to Andrea for her opinion on the matter. She gave her a nod of approval, and Eugene saw her thoughts in her eyes.
We will try to plan this wedding for a weekend before you leave. We will do what we can afford in the time given. If we can get Max and Chad to help, that would save us a little on the hired help.
That shouldn't be a problem. For the next several hours, they narrowed down every aspect of the wedding. 1 week and a dozen phone calls later, they had the whole thing planned out and funded. It was set for Sunday, July 10th. There wouldn't be time for a honeymoon. They would be reporting for testing within a week of the wedding. Besides, they didn't have the funds for a honeymoon. It would have to wait. Max and Chad were slumped down into a vintage Paisley parlor sofa in Chad's parents' basement. The sofa probably should have been declared a cat scratching post and thrown out. But it was more comfortable than the beanbag chair spewing beans or the aluminum lawn chair that was on its last leg. They were trying out finishing moves in their favorite video game, Mortal Kombat.
Do you ever wish you had another shot with Madeline?
I guess sometimes.
Always wish she'd given me a chance. I suppose I'm not her type. But it's hard not to care for her. I hope that doesn't make things weird between us. I'm not saying I'm going to try anything, just...
Hold your damn horses, Chad. If anyone is going to go out with Madeline, it's me. I'm sorry you missed out, but there's a shit ton of other girls out there. Find your own. We're buds, so I'll let it slide this time, but come on. You know how I feel about her. I don't want to hear another damn word about it.
Fine. I just thought you should know how I feel. From now on, she's like a sister to me. You're my brother. Let's shake on it. Darian will want that.
The men shook hands and sighed deeply as they walked away. After the graduation party, James woke up with an unquenchable thirst. He went for a walk in the forest behind his house and began running, fast. A speed far beyond anything he had been able to achieve before now. Mindlessly, instinctually, he pounced and tackled a full-grown doe to the forest floor, his teeth penetrating its fur and skin. He drained it quickly of its life essence. Following the bloody feast, he curled up under the shade of a 200-year-old oak tree, an action which seemed perfectly natural to him at the time. A voice seeped into his unconscious mind.
Join me in 48 hours at the Two Keys Hotel in Baltic City. Your people will welcome you, and your purpose will be fulfilled. You will never want for anything. Every desire will be met. Leave now.
James woke suddenly and began trekking toward Baltic City, his body moving limply, as if he was some kind of zombie. The rest of June went by rather quickly, and the 4th of July was upon them. Darian had a small birthday celebration, and afterwards they went to Oregon Ridge to see fireworks set to the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra. It was nice. It was the birthday celebration he always wanted. He had tried to invite James, but James' parents said that he hadn't been home since the graduation party. Darian was worried for him, but he didn't have time to look for him. His wedding was to be the very next weekend. The night before their wedding, Darian and Kristen spent some time apart for the first time in a long time, as they attended their respective bachelor and bachelorette parties. They would not see each other until the wedding day. The moment arrived before they knew it. Guests began arriving at noon. It was a beautiful outdoor ceremony. Their closest friends and family made up the wedding party. Max was the best man. Chad and their friend Steve were ushers. Denise was the maid of honor, and Madeline and Darian's mother Andrea were the bridesmaids. Darian's father had the honor of walking Kristen down the aisle. She was alluring in a girl-next-door kind of way, wearing the white gown that was given to her at graduation. The ceremony itself was meaningful yet entertaining. eschewing the overly formal nature of many traditional weddings. Afterwards, they all went to a nearby hall for the reception. 30 minutes in, Max gave his speech.
Well, you guys finally tied the knot. God knows you've been together long enough for it to be the right decision. Most people don't know how this relationship started, but allow me to let you in on a little secret. These two made an agreement to pretend to be together when they started high school, so that they could actually focus on their studies. Well, you guys, look where that got you. You did the bravest and most unexpected thing. You put aside years of friendship and fell in love. Now you're married, and anyone who said that it wouldn't last, well, they have to eat their words now. Must feel pretty good, you two. Have fun.
Both Darian and Kristen looked at each other and knew what the other was thinking. Justin was the only one who had openly opposed their relationship, and he was dead. It was an odd feeling to have during a wedding toast. Darian still felt guilty every time he thought of Justin. He wondered if that feeling would ever go away. Then his thoughts turned to James. He still hadn't heard from him. Something had to be wrong. After Max's speech, there was a round of applause, and then it quieted down as the reception continued. Everyone seemed to have a good time. A little later, Darian spoke. Well, as some of you know, Chad, Max, Kristen, and I are leaving for the Navy soon. We go in for testing next week, and from there, who knows? I'm sure we'll be back, and when we are, we will tell you what we can. In the meantime, if there's anything anyone needs to tell us, you have 3 days to do so before you run the risk of not being able to for what might be a long time. Many people took the opportunity to thank them for their decision to enlist and wish them luck in their new careers. The next 3 days went by far too quickly. The time had come for the four friends to go to the Naval Academy Testing Center. Kristen pulled open the heavy metal door to her favorite coffee shop, the Pour House. She took in the deep richness of the scent of their coffee beans roasting. With a heavy sigh, she spotted her longtime friend Denise. She was sitting at a kitschy table painted like a chessboard. The women embraced tightly for a moment, and a slow tear trickled down Kristen's cheek.
I'm sure gonna miss you, Chris.
Girl, I'm gonna write to you every day. Have fun in Europe, and I want to see pictures.
I kind of wish I was going with you.
Really? I kind of wish I was going with you. How am I supposed to keep an eye on you while you're in Europe? You may have been the valedictorian, but you aren't one to avoid misadventure.
Kristen remembered the time when Denise broke her arm jumping off of a 20-foot rock into a pile of leaves in the woods behind her house. Then she remembered when Denise took a bus to New York for the weekend without telling anyone, because she wanted to go shopping at some better stores. She had a sudden thought. Kristen excused herself to go to the restroom. Once there, she pulled out the charm bracelet she brought to give to Denise. Kristen laid the bracelet on a paper towel on the counter. Then she made 3 clockwise circular motions over the bracelet while chanting.
Protect Denise from all harm. Let this charm bring her luck. And with my magic compass, let me find her if I ever sense that she is in danger. With harm to none, so mote it be. By the power of 3 times 3 times 3, as I will it, so shall it be.
The bracelet lit up with a purple glow for a moment, and Kristen pulled out her magical compass. The dial pointed directly toward the bracelet. She smiled and rushed back to the table.
So where were we? I was telling you how much I was going to miss you and wondering when we will ever see each other again.
You never know when our paths will cross again. I love you so much, Chris.
I love you too. Here's a good luck charm. Promise me you'll keep it on at all times. For luck?
Kristen gave Denise the small charm bracelet. It had small representations of the European landmarks like the Eiffel Tower.
I promise. This is too cute. And it's just boot camp in Europe. We will see each other again by the holidays.
The women embraced again, cried a bit, talked for a good hour, and then said their final goodbyes. Darian, Kristen, Max, and Chad arrived at the testing area 1 hour early. After checking in, they were immediately admitted to begin their academic testing. Once the academic testing was completed, they moved on to the rigorous physical tests. After waiting about an hour, they received their results. All 4 received high marks in both areas. They were then taken as a group, with a few others, into a meeting room. 5 minutes in, Max started looking around nervously.
Hey guys, what do you think about all this?
Maybe you won a prize for being like the 100th sign-up of the week. There was a snicker from someone that they did not know. Darian looked around for the origin of the sound and then saw where it came from. A tall guy with blonde hair. He was a little stocky, but in good shape. When he turned to look at the group, he had a smile on his face, so Darian smiled back. "So what are you in for?"
Probably games in theory. Not sure yet, though. Name's Jesse. Jesse Barnes. You?
"Darian Kane. This is Max, Chad, and my wife Kristen." He shook Darian's hand and then proceeded to shake the hands of the others. Darian noticed that there were a few more people in the room that he did not know. Since introductions went so well with Jesse, he thought he should introduce himself and see who else he might befriend. Darian approached a guy that was about his height, with brownish blonde hair and dark shades. He was built and seemed a little more muscular than Darian. "Hi, I'm Darian. How's it going?" The other guy stood up with a very mean look on his face, and then his face softened as he introduced himself.
John Matthews. I want to be a sharpshooter. Oh, and I'm good. Thanks for asking.
The way he said it, Darian wasn't sure if that was an answer to his question or an unsolicited commentary on his skill as a sharpshooter. Darian simply nodded and moved on to the last person in the room, a dark-skinned man that he actually recognized a little. But he wasn't sure. "Eric, is that you?" It had been a long time. He hadn't seen Eric since middle school. The man stood up.
"Thought it was you. Wanted to wait till you got to me. Damn, it's good to see you."
They shook hands vehemently. Suddenly, the door to the meeting room opened, and what looked like a 25-year-old woman entered. She was wearing a white blouse and a black skirt, very professional looking. Her voice carried a strong air of authority.
"If you could all sit down, we will begin."
Darian noticed that she spoke a bit cryptically, but he thought maybe it was just his own clouded perception. As soon as they took their appropriate seats, the woman began to explain why they were all sitting in the meeting room.
"I am Samantha Madison. The reason I called you all here is because your test scores were among the highest we received. Beyond that, there were aspects of the testing that indicated you may be right for a special program that is offered to fewer than 1% of all military applicants. I will be speaking to each of you individually. Once finished, if you wish to go further, we will be sending you to the institute where the program is administered, a place I assure you that no one you know has ever been to."
With that, she exited the room, signaling for Eric to follow her for the individual questioning. Eric soon found himself in what appeared to be an interrogation room. The door was sealed. Eric was a bit nervous. He hoped that these tests and questions would lead to something interesting for him. Sam sat down and began.
"So your tests indicate that you have been fighting vampires and demons for quite a while. What is your background in this area?"
Eric's face lit up with that question. It was time to reveal his hidden power. He gestured with his right hand, and a small flame appeared in the palm of his hand.
"I can create fire with my mind. It's aided me when hunting vampires and certain demons."
Samantha was surprised, but played it cool.
"So you have pyrokinesis? Any other tricks up your sleeve?"
"I really don't know. I was hoping to find out here."
"When did you start fighting vampires and demons?"
A friend of mine was taken by a group of vampires that tortured and fed on him for 3 days before they finally killed him. I only found out about it because they turned him into one. He came to my house and I didn't know any better, so I invited him in. He fed off my dog, and that was when I knew something was wrong. When I saw what was happening, I immediately tried to stop him, but I wasn't strong enough. I was terrified and started to freak out, and suddenly he was on fire and he turned to ash. It was almost too late for my dog Ryan, but I got him to a vet and they fixed him up. He's still a little shy around new visitors, but otherwise he's okay. After all that, I started hunting vampires and playing around with my, what'd you call it? Pyrokinesis? I learned how to direct it and make it ignite when I'm not in a panic state.
"It was lucky you got Ryan to the vet in time to save him. It says here in your physical tests that you're quite resilient to heat. I guess I understand why now."
It was a half hour later when Eric came back into the room with a very confused look on his face.
Don't expect any answers to all this. I'm more confused now than when I went in.
Meanwhile, at the Renegade HQ, a tall black man who had cybernetic implants all over his body stood over a table, examining a pristine gleaming sword. It was composed of an extremely rare material called crinonium. Crinonium was remarkable because it was one of the few things capable of ending an immortal's existence. This man, called Destroyer, was a master at forging the substance. As he placed down the blade and turned back to the fabricator to begin anew, he caught sight of a beautiful woman dressed in all black as she entered the room. She had an intimidating presence. The laser whip that hung from her belt let onlookers know she was not to be trifled with. He knew he could tame her, though. He knew he could make her his own.
So, how are Nightmare's plans coming along?
Dominator was in a bit of a rush and didn't have much time for random questioning. It was also clear by the look on her face that she didn't like being questioned. Interrogations were her line of work. She stopped in her tracks and responded.
Well, we haven't got the vehicles up to code for interdimensional travel yet. We will have to carry out the attack without them. Nothing we haven't managed before.
Destroyer was well aware, but he needed some pretense to speak to her.
As you can see, the weapons are coming along nicely.
He retrieved the recently completed sword from the table and displayed it to her as he spoke. The quality of his work was impeccable. She would have no choice but to see his greatness in it.
This is but one of 3 Crinonium blades I've recently completed. Most of our inventory has been altered to withstand interdimensional travel. The weapons will work.
Good. With beautiful weapons like these, and more importantly, weapons that work, perhaps Nightmare can stop hiring the vampires. They give me the creeps.
Destroyer couldn't understand why Dominator would object to vampires on the team.
Nightmare will never stop recruiting vampires. They are far too useful to him. Their kind is a powerful weapon. They do major damage to the population of whatever world we are attacking. How could you argue against that?
I don't know. For any of us a human, they pose a threat. I would be happier if you decided to do away with all the vampires on our side. I just don't like their kind.
Do you want to tell Nightmare that? Do you want to question his intentions? That didn't go well for you last time.
Dominator stroked the scar on her neck from the beating she received from Nightmare the last time she questioned his methods.
You do have a point. I guess I will just have to get used to these loathsome creatures.
She was disgusted with herself for being so weak, but Nightmare was powerful and also their leader. She would put up with them for now. The next person to go in was Chad. Unlike Eric, he was immediately comfortable with being in the interrogation room. He felt that he had nothing to hide. Sam came into the room and began looking through her notes.
Bear with me for a moment while I look at your test scores.
A few minutes later, the questioning began.
So it appears that you have an aptitude in advanced engineering. I think you could learn a lot from the program. There is one thing I am unclear about, though. Everyone else has some sort of special ability. What's yours?
Chad didn't fully understand the question, so he gave her a rather confused look.
I don't really know. Like, what kind of special ability?
Well, I can't discuss the abilities of others, but a good example would be if you had some sort of super strength, or maybe if you were really fast, maybe you have an aptitude with fire or ice, something like that.
Samantha kept looking at the test scores.
It says here you have the top score in visual acuity. Have you ever needed glasses or contacts?
No, I can see very far and I can see things that are very small in great detail. Is that the kind of ability you were looking for?
Chad looked back to all the times his visual abilities had helped him, like when he took his driver's test. He passed the first time with a perfect score.
I think my hand-eye coordination is pretty solid as well. I play a lot of video games and I'm pretty good at them.
Sam wrote a couple of notes on her notepad.
So maybe your ability has something to do with that. I know it may seem like a minor ability, but it does have its advantages.
Sam continued her questioning. About 45 minutes later, Chad came back into the waiting room with a pretty confused look on his face.
Don't ask. I can't tell you anything relevant anyway.
Kristen went next, which made Darian a little nervous. When Kristen sat down with Sam, there seemed to be a very relaxed connection between the two of them.
So what's this all about?
She was looking through Kristen's test scores when she heard the question.
I really wish I could tell you, but I cannot, in case you don't make it into the program.
I understand. You have rules to follow.
Kristen seemed to understand more than the last two subjects about the need for secrecy.
Okay, according to your test scores, you have an aptitude in non-traditional science, which some here call magic. Can you name a time when you have successfully used a spell to get something done?
Kristen was a little shy regarding her magical abilities, but figured if it would help her learn more, she would go along with the questioning for now.
When I was 16, I really wanted to have a day off of school. It was winter, so I thought I would try a weather spell. Once I got it to start snowing, it just kept going. I completely freaked. I looked through all my books on magic that I had at my disposal, but no matter what I tried, it wouldn't stop. It finally did after 3 days. It caused a lot of economic and ecological problems, so I swore off magic for a while. I couldn't stay away for long, though, but even after I came back, I swore I would never do that spell again. It seemed like it was too harmful to nature, and I love nature. The risk was not worth the reward.
Okay, so you have dabbled in some uncontrolled magic. I think the program could help you develop further and help you to focus your abilities.
Sam noticed Kristen's shoes.
I love your shoes. Where did you get them?
A new place in the mall off Route 40. I was going to say, I really love your shoes.
They both laughed a bit, and then the questioning continued. When Kristen returned, she had a smile on her face.
I really can't tell you anything about the questioning, but Sam does have great taste in shoes. That's what took us so long. We got into a discussion on the comfort level of our shoes.
Meanwhile, in a pocket dimension, the UAD Strategic Planning Committee sat around a conference table. A man in a suit spoke in panicked tones to a woman in dark clothing.
This threat of the renegades is a major issue. We don't currently have the resources to deal with the entire world's being destroyed by them.
We are in the process of recruiting new members into the United Alliance of Dimensions. Samantha is talking to a few prospective members now. It will take some time, but...
We don't have time to wait. If they get past testing, I want their training fast-tracked so that we can get them into the battalions so that we can have more bodies to fight this war.
Yes, sir. I will relay the message to Samantha post-haste.
Samantha indicated that it was Jesse's turn. Jesse sat down in the interrogation room and waited a few minutes for Sam to review his test scores.
So it looks like you have a major aptitude for computers and robotics. Can you tell me anything more about that?
Jesse shifted in his seat and leaned forward.
Before I learned how to ride a bike without training wheels, I started to build microcomputers. Mostly out of junk people threw away. I learned robotics on a school field trip during a long drive to DC. I read a 400-page book and captured the entire process to memory. When we arrived at the Capitol, I was so intrigued by what I had just learned that I just kept talking to whomever would listen. My teachers and classmates got super annoyed, so from that point on, I just kept it all to myself.
It appears that you may have latent technokinesis ability, or at the very least, hyperintelligence with an eidetic memory. I think you will fit great in the program.
Jesse continued to talk about computers and programming for a while. When Jesse came back with Samantha, it was she who had a very confused look on her face. He certainly knew a lot about computers and technology. Samantha nodded to Max this time, and he got up and followed her out of the room. Meanwhile, a young teacher and his wife laid beside one another on a queen-sized bed covered in smooth black Egyptian sheets. As soon as he knew that his wife fell asleep, he closed his eyes and joined her in the astral realm, where they made love for several hours. When they awoke, both felt blissfully satisfied. Sean couldn't imagine a life without Alicia. He would do anything to keep her safe. Max was sitting in the interrogation room, twiddling his thumbs, as he waited for the questioning to begin. Sam looked over his test scores and began the questioning.
It seems you have an aptitude in explosives. Have you ever made any homemade explosives?
Nothing big, but I did accidentally burn down a barn with one of my devices, so I guess the answer is yes.
He had a smirk on his face as if he was proud of that accident.
It also looks like you have a problem with patience and authority. If we let you into the program, you will have to learn some patience and get that temper of yours under control.
How do any of these tests I took tell you that?
They don't. I know more information about you than these tests can provide.
How's that?
Max was intrigued.
I cannot tell you now, but if you are accepted into the program, your questions will be answered in time. My question is, can you wait long enough to find out?
Yeah, I guess.
When Max came back into the room, he just shrugged and sat down. Denise had been enjoying her trip to the UK, and then they showed up. Some clandestine group had approached her in a pub while she was having a drink. They all but forced her to come with them to hear them out. All she knew was that it had something to do with powered people. She only knew a couple of people who had powers, one of whom was Darien. She saw his strength once by accident, when he was fighting a vampire. She knew that it was imperative to keep that a secret, but when she met with this shadow group, they seemed to know about Darien and his friends. She was to meet them today regarding recruitment, and she was on her way. Once she arrived at the secret location, a tall man in a brown suit began talking to her as soon as she sat down.
I am John Pierce, a member of the Order of Magistrates. So, Ms. Winters, I see here in our intelligence briefing that you have ties to several powered people. Can you tell me about them?
No, I don't like talking about people behind their backs. If you want to know something about them, you will have to ask them yourself.
Her response was cold but not rude. John wrote a few notes down on his pad.
Okay. Can you tell me why you keep their secrets?
Because they asked me to, and I don't want to be responsible for their capture or the experiments that would be done on them.
Look, Ms. Winters, we know about Darien Kane. In fact, our superiors are working on recruiting him and his friends now. He may have asked you to keep his strength as a secret, but he is not so secretive himself. We want to protect him and his friends.
Denise was still suspicious.
Okay, what do you want from me? Why are you trying to recruit me?
John shuffled a few pieces of paper, looking for something. Then he found it. He handed her something.
Here, take a look at this photo.
Denise looked at the photo. It was a photo of Darien lifting the front of a car to rescue a small boy.
This could be faked.
Look, Miss Winters, we are the good guys. I swear to you that no harm will come to Darien or his friends, whether you answer or not. However, if you do answer, we may be able to help him more than if you don't.
Denise thought carefully before responding.
What do you want to know?
Finally, it was Darien's turn to be questioned. When he walked into the room, he noticed that it had a steel door. To him it felt a bit odd, but he decided not to question it. He was directed to sit down at a table. The room was made of concrete and steel, with what appeared to be a two-way mirror on one wall. There was a glass of water in front of him, but he chose not to drink it, as he was uncertain what the test was, or if the water was part of said test. Samantha sat down across from Darien, and the questioning began.
I am going to ask you a series of questions that will help us determine if you are right for the program, and if so, what aspects would be best fitted to your individual skill set. Remember, there are no wrong answers, so tell me the answer that rings true for each question to the best of your knowledge.
Darien figured this was all going to be pretty standard, and saw no reason to complicate it. Yes, ma'am.
To get us started, what faith do you follow, or what is your belief system?
Darien found this to be a strange question, but decided to play along for now. I guess you could say I'm agnostic. I do believe that there is some sort of higher power, but I don't really know what it is, and to be honest, I don't really care that much either. With no expression change at all, she made a mark on her paper and proceeded with the next question.
What is your view on the different races in our country?
I'm sorry, I don't quite get what you're asking. Do you mean like illegal aliens, or races like Chinese or African? What are you asking me? She sat for a moment and just thought of how to rephrase it, then asked a little more clearly.
How do you feel about people who are different from yourself, like black people, Asian people, Mexicans, Latinos?
Well, I think that anyone who honestly tries to help society to grow rather than be a hindrance deserves to be able to try for American citizenship. As long as they don't have a problem with me, I don't have a problem with them. That goes for anyone, though, no matter what their skin pigmentation or cultural background.
Okay, have you ever had any experience with vampires or other demons?
She asked in a manner that was very matter-of-fact, as if it was clear that she knew these creatures existed. Darien felt that the conversation just got very interesting. Although he was a bit thrown by this line of questioning, he didn't think the military knew about such matters. Actually, yes. I've killed several vampires in my life, as well as a few demons. One such occasion was pretty recent. A classmate of mine, at a graduation party. He was a total asshole, but no one deserves that.
That must have been hard for you.
Yeah, it's been weighing on me ever since. I feel guilty, like I should have been able to do something to save him. Samantha gave Darien a sympathetic look.
It sounds like there wasn't much you could have done there. This is one of the hardships that comes with direct knowledge of the supernatural. Do you believe in the possibility of life on other planets?
Absolutely. I think it would be egocentric not to.
Explain, please.
Okay, so the way I see it, we are the third closest planet to our star, which we call Sol. So far, we are the only planet that we know of that has life. However, there are literally billions upon billions of stars in the known galaxy. Even if a third of them had a planet capable of supporting life, there would have to be life on other planets. Many planets. We are not the center of the galaxy, just a speck in the grand cosmos. Samantha grinned at his enthusiastic explanation.
I like that. Next question. Do you believe in the possibility of alternate dimensions?
Yes, I have often thought that it would be cool to see one, just to see how different it would be from our own. Sam looked over Darian's test scores.
It looks like you are very strong. Can you tell me about a time when you used your strength to assist someone in need?
Darian knew that his strength would be of some concern. Well, that incident at the graduation party, like I said, I broke a chair leg on a pretty solid chair pretty easily to handle my classmate turned vampire.
You said you fought other vampires, right? What made you take up this cause?
Because someone has to. Someone that has strength like mine. Gotta keep the world a safe place. Or at least safe from vampires.
Okay, we're done here. You may go back to the meeting room with the others for further information.
Can I ask what this is all about anyway?
It would be easier to tell you all at once. So go back to the meeting room and wait for me, okay?
Absolutely. Darian realized that he wasn't going to get any more information from her until she was ready to give it, so he returned to the meeting room. She took John into the room last. She sat down in the chair and looked at his test scores.
Wow, I have never seen a better score for accuracy as a marksman. What's your secret?
When I close my right eye, I can see very far out of my left eye. I trained as a youth on how to properly use a rifle. I've wanted to be a marksman most of my life.
John was not at all nervous. He was calm and methodical in all of his answers. His questioning took the longest due to the field he was looking to get into. Once he was finished, he returned to the room with no expression at all and just sat back down and waited for further instruction. Darian was sitting in the waiting room, talking to his new friends. So, Jesse, where are you from? Jesse looked up from the magazine he was reading.
Baltic City. I live in a secure building on Orlando Street with my mom and dad. My brother just got recruited by Western Maryland College up in Westminster to play football.
What about you, Eric? What have you been up to?
Mostly learning how to use my ability.
Darian was intrigued, and by the look on Jesse's face, he seemed intrigued as well. What ability?
Everyone, just look at my right hand.
Eric snapped his fingers, and the flame appeared out of nowhere.
Mrs. Madison called it pyrokinesis. Guess that's what I have.
Darian smiled. He grabbed an empty metal chair and bent the leg easily as he spoke. You're not the only one with the gift. I've been using my strength to protect my town from vampires. Killed several so far. I don't hate it. We should go out vamp hunting together sometime.
Well now, that sounds like a fun little play date, doesn't it?
They both chuckled. Max was visibly annoyed.
You show off too much, Darian. We don't even know these people and you're revealing your strength. Stop being a fucking moron and keep your mouth shut for once.
Darian was not surprised. Max didn't trust anyone, but Darian felt he had the right to show off to his old friend Eric. Dude, sorry if that upset you, but I know Eric. And besides, he shared his power with us. Why is it a big deal? Max glanced around the room.
I'm not talking about someone you already know, and I don't mean any offense to any of you, but Darian, you need to learn to keep things secret. I can't even count the number of times I have stopped you from going public with your strength. Ever since you first got it, you've been showing off. If you're not careful, you're going to get yourself in big trouble.
He has a point, Darian. I don't want them to take you away and do experiments on you. Let's keep it tight to the chest from now on, alright, buddy?
Darian felt a bit like he was under attack. But after he thought about it for a minute, he understood. Okay, no more showing off. Sorry, guys. I guess everyone in this room is pretty much in the same boat, huh? John put a finger up to his lips, as if to signify that keeping it quiet suited him just fine. Everyone else nodded in agreement. Sometime later, Sam called them into the conference room, and they gathered around the meeting table.
I would like to say that you all did fine in the category of one-on-one questioning. It is now time for you to go home and relax. You will be contacted sometime in the next few days and given information as to how this will move forward. If all goes well, you will be starting the program within the next 2 weeks. Thank you. You are dismissed.
The group exchanged some confused glances before walking out of the room to head home and wait for the call. It had been a full week since the Naval Academy entrance exams and the strange conversations with Samantha Madison. However, no one in Darian's group had received a call. Before they left the testing center, Darian exchanged phone numbers with John, Eric, and Jesse, just so they could keep in touch and compare their conversations to see what information they could glean from Sam's questions. They all became very fast friends and started hanging out on a regular basis. Darian got the call on a Tuesday. He was told to gather the others and meet at the building where they took their exams. They were to be there in 1 week to report for duty. This meant that it was time to say goodbye to their friends and family. Darian told Madeline that since he was joining the military, she should stay a civilian. He could not imagine her joining the service anyway. Besides, he was allowed to be protective over his little sister, especially after what happened to Maddie's twin Matt. Since he went to military school, Maddie should just stay safe and sane. They all took the time to say goodbye to their friends and family. Kristen took the time to thank Eugene and Andrea for everything they had done for her. She was so very appreciative. Darian's family had become her family in more than name, in heart too. Madeline and Kristen had become even closer since she and Darian had married. Saying goodbye was probably the hardest thing she had ever done. There was a bus waiting outside for all of them. They boarded and left for the testing center. It was a moment filled with anticipation and excitement, but also sadness and worry. Darian's parents watched as the bus drove out of sight.
Do you think they'll do well at the academy?
Andrea looked at him knowingly.
We did. I'm sure they'll be just fine. Jake will watch over them. I spoke with him yesterday. It was Samantha that administered the test in the first place. I'm sure they'll be just fine. We'll see them in a year.
Still, it's too bad we couldn't tell them about our own experiences there. That might have made things a bit easier for them to understand.
Well, they'll know soon enough. You do still have a lot of records of achievement there. I'm sure they'll see them.
You're right. I'm sure they'll be fine. And when they get back, there'll be no more secrets. That'll feel good.
Andrea looked at Eugene and thought about their son Sean. Darian could not remember him, but Sean was his older brother. When he left for the academy, Darian was 13 years old. No one ever mentioned Sean again. It was like he never existed. Andrea and Eugene remembered him, and even kept in contact with him when they could. The last they heard, he had become a teacher at the academy. Andrea wondered if Darian would see Sean there. She knew that if he did, he would immediately remember him. Samantha was also a member of their family. She was Sean's twin sister. Darian didn't remember her either. They both left for the academy at the same time, and both decided to stay in service of the United Alliance of Dimensions. Samantha decided to become a member of the Order of Magistrates, and spent most of her time off-world. As a result, Darian's memories of her were clouded. The bus arrived at Annapolis Naval Academy at 0800 hours. Darian, Kristen, Max, Chad, John, Eric, and Jesse disembarked and were shown to their sleeping area. They discovered that they had to share a large room with about 16 other beds, all twin size. Darian and Kristen knew that for basic training they would have to sleep separately, so they chose beds that were next to each other. This was going to be a rough 6 weeks for everyone. As soon as they were all settled in, there was a message on the loudspeaker.
All new cadets report to the courtyard immediately.
Darian glanced up at the speaker and then motioned to his friends, indicating that they should leave now. They all filed out into the courtyard immediately. When they arrived, they saw a man in camouflage pants and a black tank top with a sergeant's hat and silver-rimmed sunglasses. He was big and imposing, with black hair and a mustache.
Line up, ladies. My name is Sergeant Drake. I am your drill instructor. When I speak to you, you will address me as Drill Sergeant. Is that clear?
Yes, Drill Sergeant!
After a long lecture from their new drill sergeant and a 6-mile run, they all headed back to their sleeping quarters.
How about that drill sergeant?
Yeah, wow. What a piece of work.
What's funny is it's like every military movie I've ever seen. This guy could be in any one of them.
Well, let's go get some lunch and see what's next.
They all went to the mess hall, ate, and reported back to the sergeant afterwards. The sergeant had them run a rigorous obstacle course. By the end of the first day, everyone in the training squad was so exhausted that they just passed out in bed after a quick shower. The following week was pretty much the same routine every day. They would wake up at 4 a.m., go through rigorous obstacle courses, run at least 6 miles a day, and that was only if everyone behaved properly. One day, John mouthed off to the sergeant, and they all had to run 12 miles. John did not make many friends that day. The second week of training was a lot like the first. The only difference was a carrying exercise where everyone had to carry machine guns through the obstacle courses as well as in the 6 to 12 mile runs. During the third week, they started weapons training. Everyone in Darian's group made it through with certifications and high marks, especially John. He had a real talent for handling weapons, and got the highest marks of the entire squad. The drill sergeant took a special interest in him because of his skills and recommended him for sharpshooter training. By the fourth week, Darian and Kristen had found a place to sneak off together where no one could find them. They were never caught, but may have missed out on a few small training exercises. John was separated from the main group for about a week for specialized sharpshooter training. When he came back, his attitude had changed from cold and sarcastic to cold and quiet. The final 2 weeks of training covered concepts from prior weeks combined together, some additional weapons training, survivalist training, and team missions training. Other than a few minor injuries, most of the recruits got through unscathed. 3 of the people who started training at the same time as Darian and his friends had washed out. Once basic was over, the drill sergeant actually took the group out to a local bar to celebrate. He took the opportunity to talk to Darian and friends about where they would be going next.
So I understand that you all have been selected for the program. I'm glad to hear it.
Darian was a bit shaken by the sergeant's words. Do you know what the program is?
I'm not at liberty to say, but I've seen your test scores and I think you all enjoyed the challenge. You leave at midnight. It'll take several hours to get to the island. You'll probably be there by morning.
Max caught something that Drake had said, and it gave him pause.
Island?
Yes, the island is the first step. I can't tell you much more than that.
Darian was the only person paying full attention to their now former drill instructor, and was intrigued by what had been said. So what happens after that? Drake smiled a half smile at Darian.
That part, I can't tell you. It's different for everyone. But what I can say is, it is vital that you follow every instruction that Miss Sanders gives you once you arrive on the island. May also be a good idea if you don't sneak off with the wife during any of the instructions.
You knew about that? Why didn't you bust us?
Drake gave Kristen a very genuine smile and then left the table. Kristen laughed to herself. Deep down, that rough drill instructor was a romantic. That gave her a newfound respect for the man. The rest of the evening passed too quickly. Darian and his friends were ready to leave for the program, whatever it was, by 11 p.m. Once they arrived at the airport, they were taken on a small plane to New York, where they boarded a yacht. They were then taken to a small island off the east coast of the United States. Once on the island, they took a shuttle bus to a building that was pointed out to them as their dormitory. They were still almost completely in the dark about the nature of the program. This was a unisex dormitory, and it had no other buildings anywhere near it. It confused a lot of them, but it was only Darian that finally said something about it. So where are we? The shuttle bus driver turned to face Darian.
All will be made clear soon enough. Believe me, you're not the first person to ask such a question.
Darian nodded and then noticed someone coming toward the bus. The door opened and a woman who was wearing a polo shirt and tan slacks walked up the bus stairs.
Hello, my name is Winifred Sanders, Fred for short. In the coming days, I will be showing you all to your rooms and telling you about some of the rules for the dorm. Please, follow me.
She then walked off the bus and waited for the group to follow. Darian shrugged, got up and headed off the bus. Everyone else followed. Once they were off the bus, the driver closed the doors and drove out of sight. Darian and his group stood looking around at the flat plains that went on as far as the eye could see until they dropped into the ocean. The group began to follow Fred into the one single building. The sliding double doors opened automatically. Once they were closed, Darian noticed a small white mist beginning to form outside. He did not think anything of it, just figured it was normal weather for the island.
The elevators are out of service at the moment. We will have to take the stairs.
She then opened the door and they all followed her up the stairs to the 13th floor. Darian noticed that the door to the 13th floor actually read 13th floor. He found this odd. They usually skipped directly to the 14th floor.
You don't often see a 13th floor. Very interesting.
Fred motioned for them to follow her down the hallway, past the common area, and into the individual rooms.
There will be 2 to a room. Jonathan Matthews and Eric Swanson, room 1301. Darian and Kristen Kane, room 1302. Max Knight and... Oh, I see your roommate is not here yet. Room 1303. Chad Ender and Jesse Barnes, room 1304. The kitchen is on the 11th floor and is open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Now, there are a few minor rules which must be followed for the next 3 days. Rule 1. Do not go outside for any reason. I cannot explain why this is important, but no one will be allowed outside of this building until 3 days have passed. Rule 2. If the power goes out, do not be alarmed and do not attempt to fix it. The breaker boxes are not on this level and cannot be reached by any of you at this time. Unfortunately, we cannot use backup generators for the next 3 days. If the power goes out, remember to safely shut down all computers. They are on uninterruptible power supplies, so you will have approximately 15 minutes to shut them down. The third and final rule: do not attempt to use any type of communication device to communicate between yourselves and anyone outside of this building. For the next 3 days, try and use the time to get to know your neighbors on the other floors. Socialize and try to have a good time within the confines of those 3 rules. It can be done. We do have some board games and plenty of decks of cards. Good day.
With that, Fred started to walk back toward the stairwell.
Wait a minute, you still haven't told us what this is all about.
Everyone stared at Fred.
I do apologize. However, I cannot go into details about that at this time. In 3 days, you will know everything you need to know. Rest assured, you are safe as long as you follow the rules laid out for you.
Fred left the 13th floor without looking back. They all decided to go sit in the common area for a little while to try to figure things out. Meanwhile, at the Renegade HQ, Dominator walked into the room where Destroyer was forging his immortal slaying blades. Destroyer looked up from what he was doing.
What's wrong, babe?
Nightmare just recruited even more fucking vampires. I'm getting really sick of working with these things. Goddamn blood suck.
She was interrupted by a fist slamming into the wall. Nightmare stood there, seething. After a moment, he calmly removed his fist from the hole in the wall. He looked at Destroyer for a moment and then shifted his attention toward Dominator.
I understand you have a problem with my plan, my use of vampires and demons.
He was calm, like he didn't just punch a hole in the wall.
Sir, I'm not questioning your plan, it's just...
Go on.
I don't trust them.
That's because you can't control them. I can. They're the easiest creatures to control. They think I'm leading them to a better future. My control of them is so subtle that even they don't realize it's happening. You need to trust me. You need to not piss me off.
I'm sorry, sir. I don't know what I was thinking.
She was scared. She didn't know what he would do. Nightmare reached out his right hand and gently stroked Dominator's scar.
Let's not have a repeat of this. It was painful for both of us.
When Nightmare removed his hand from Dominator, her scar ached ever so slightly.
Yes, sir.
She relaxed, realizing that he didn't intend to physically harm her.
Destroyer, how many of those blades have you made?
Only 6, sir. They take a lot of time to enchant. If you don't mind a suggestion, we need to hire more spellcasters. It would make the job so much easier.
You continue to serve our collective best interest, my friend. Dominator, you need to listen to this man. Following his example, he never questions my orders or intentions.
It was at that moment that Dominator realized that it was Destroyer who told Nightmare about her doubts. She would punish him later, when he least expected it. He would pay. John grabbed a deck of cards and gestured for everyone to sit around the nearest table. Everyone sat, and John started dealing the cards out. Chad was a bit nervous.
Anyone feel like we just joined a cult or something?
Jesse looked around the room.
This is some ultra weird shit, I will say that.
So what do you think we're into here? CIA? NSA? FBI? Some top secret military group that chases wild theories like aliens, or what?
Max was clearly grasping at straws. Darian was suddenly reminded of one of the questions he was asked by Samantha Madison.
Yeah, Mrs. Madison asked me about my thoughts on life from other planets, and about different dimensions, too.
Okay, well, this has to mean something, right?
Just then, the door to the 13th floor swung open slowly. A medium-built, reddish-brown-haired man came into the room.
Hey,
Hey, name's Ethan Evans. I'm supposed to be in room 1303 with Max Knight?
Max stood up.
That would be me. Let me show you to our room.
They walked toward the room so that Max could show him where to set his stuff down and get settled. Once they were back, Max introduced his new roommate to the rest of the group.
So, Ethan, do you have any idea why we're here or what this is all about?
Nope. Just as clueless as everybody else. And I'm too hungry to even try to figure it out. Anyone know where they keep the chow around here?
Meanwhile, in another dimension, Denise was walking around a beautiful white marble room. She couldn't remember how she got there, but she did remember why she was there. She was at the academy that Darian and his friends would be attending, and Denise was there to make sure it was prepared for them. She walked out of the room with the white marble and went outside to look around. She saw people playing frisbee and noticed that a few people had these strange mini-computers that substituted for all the books they needed, as well as a portal to even more knowledge. She was told about this by the recruiter, John Pierce. This place was certainly beautiful, but she knew she couldn't stay for long. The agreement was that she would inspect the grounds to make sure they were suitable for her friends. She walked to the library and found the librarian.
Hi, I'm Denise. I was recently recruited into the Order of Magistrates. I wanted to know what you could tell me about this place. Is it safe for humans with powers to train?
Eric Trent looked up from the book he was reading on his tablet PC.
This academy is the best place to train young, powered people, as well as people with great minds. Only the best of the best are selected for this program. It is safe here, other than a slight bug problem, but the shields usually keep them at bay.
Bug problem? What kind of bugs require a shield to keep them out?
Eric handed her a tablet.
This will only work here, but there is a search function that will enable you to learn about specific types of bugs and why it is important to keep them at bay.
Denise took the tablet and found her way to an empty desk in the library to begin her search. They all went to the 11th floor to check out the cafeteria. Once there, they found that there was no one manning the area at all. The place was open, the lights were on, but there was no one there.
Hello?
Darian called out. There was no answer. He then noticed a sign. This is a self-service kitchen. Please have the courtesy of cleaning up after yourself. Thank you. They looked around in the cupboards and in the refrigerator, and they all found something that they wanted to eat. Once it was prepared, they sat and talked more. It felt a little odd that the kitchen was set up this way, and that there was no one else around. Darian looked out of a nearby window and noticed that the white mist had turned into somewhat of a thick fog. Again, he figured that it was just the weather, so he really didn't think much of it at the time.
So, Ethan, where are you from?
Ethan looked up from his food for a moment.
Chicago.
This got Eric's attention.
Hey, I have an uncle in Chicago.
Max looked over at the window and gestured to it.
What do you guys think is up with all this fog?
I don't know, but I did notice it. It looks like it's getting thicker. Should we go outside?
We can't. We were told not to go outside, remember?
They all remembered what Fred said and what the sergeant had said about following the rules.
Well, I'm sure it's nothing to worry about.
Darian felt something else that he found a little strange. Familiarity with this place. He couldn't quite put his fingers on why he had these feelings. It was almost 3:30 in the morning, and the entire group was getting tired. Since they had nowhere to be for the next 2 days, they all decided to go to sleep without setting an alarm. After basic, it was a welcome vacation. They could all use the sleep. Nightmare and Destroyer sat down in the grand dining room of the abandoned Two Keys Hotel in Baltic City. Hand-drawn maps of alternate realities, dimensions, and worlds covered the dark mahogany table.
This is quite an elaborate plan.
Not to worry, old friend. This is just the first step. Once we control the vampire population, we will be unstoppable.
What about Battalion 13? Aren't you worried about them?
They cannot use their powers in the dream realm. We will simply kill them in their dreams before they even know what's coming.
That's why you're in charge, Nightmare. No one can block your nightmares. No one can fight you in your territory. Dominator has no idea that she will even be sacrificed. Pity. I was just beginning to enjoy her company.
Don't worry, you'll have many playthings soon. You will have ultimate satisfaction. We will rule all the realms.
July 17th, 1995. We are a ragtag group of hungry vampire hunters. Or at least that's what I'm telling myself now. Jamie and I met up with this really cool guy named Jake. He's teaching us basic combat skills in order to survive as we continue to travel and look for answers. Jamie and I started playing telepathic games to see if we could send messages to one another through our thoughts, and it's actually working. My brother's girlfriend Kristen and I used to play these games, but we didn't really know what we were doing. Jake has been feeding us a few tips on this as well. It's like Jake was born to teach or something. Tomorrow we're going to try to travel to another dimension. The nights require comfort here in the apocalypse. Jamie is a really close friend now. I'm not saying I'm straight up gay, but what if I was? It's the fucking apocalypse. I mean, I still like guys and I miss Max. I really miss Max, but you know, this is cool too. So who cares? Jamie does, that's who. End journal entry.
Thank you for listening to the second episode of Battalion 13, the podcast. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Battalion 13HQ. Email us at b13@battalion13hq.com. Support the show by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Battalion13HQ.